and Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be playing with some pasta. Yes, you heard that correctly, pasta. I'm going to be taking some bucatini and I'm going to be using it to create a texture with my gel press printing plate. So here's what bucatini looks like. It looks a lot like spaghetti, because it's really a lot like spaghetti. But there's one thing that's a little different about it than plain old regular spaghetti. And that's that there are holes through the middle of this. So these are like little pasta straws. So if you're a little kid, it's really hard to slurp it up. But anyway, what I'm going to do is grab a little handful of it, and I'm going to flatten it down on one end. So just by tapping it down, that's going to make one side even, and then the other side, it doesn't matter. I'm going to put a rubber band right around the bottom to hold it all there. So I'm going to go over it, making sure it's really tight to hold all these pieces of pasta together. Now, of course, naturally, once you use pasta for something like art, of course you can't eat it. Well, now it's time to get some color onto those plates. So I'm going to put black on the small round one. I could use any one for this. I just need a place to hold the black paint. And I'm not going to worry about cleaning off that brayer because I'm going to be putting it back in the black paint again. Then I'm going to put some color on the 8-inch round gel press plate, and using a separate brayer, I'm going to brayer that paint on. Now, I wanted a nice thin layer of paint on here, and of course I put too much paint on because I'm a heavy paint squirter, and so I just cleaned some of it off that way on that scrap paper. Well, now it's time to use this bucatini. First thing I'm going to do is tap it into the black paint because I want to pick up some of that black paint because that's going to transfer over as I'm bouncing the bucatini here on the teal. Now, the bouncing to me is the favorite way to do this. I like the impressions that I get the best when I let it just kind of bounce, almost like like it's on a trampoline. Here I'm pushing it and I'm sort of pouncing it down. And those prints, well, I don't like those as much. I really like the bounce over the pounce. And then you keep doing this as much as you want to, grabbing more black when you feel like you need it or you want it. There's no exact way to do this. There's no proper amount of bucatini to apply. You just do it till you like how it looks. Well, now it's time to take the print. So I'm going to move my black palette out of the way here, and I'm going to grab one of the art journals that I have to take the first print. Now, I'm actually building an art journal page here consciously, so I've kind of positioning it. I have an idea about where I want to go with this, and this is where I'm going to get my very first print. Now, as I lift this up, I've got that wonderful pattern there, but there's still lots of paint left on the plate, lots of pattern. So what I'm going to do is put that or clean that off on the second art journal page. Now, this is what I call a kind of cleanup page. This is where I'm just randomly going to put stuff down. Now, if I want to stop here, I can, but I actually want to get all the paint off of this plate. So what I'm going to do is just keep putting it down in places, and I'm just going to basically let my cleanup prints here create a random background on that page that will be the start of a future art journal page. Well, now I'm going to do this all over again, but this time using lime green. Now I put the paint on there, and I'm going to clean that brayer off on a piece of scrap paper over here, the one that you saw me from earlier in the video use. And I'm going to continue on with the bucatini, dipping it in the black, and then tapping it all around on the plate. Again, could I do half the plate? Could I do a quarter of the plate? Could I do some of the plate? Absolutely. And when I think my black paint is getting a little bit dry, then I'm simply going to put a little more black paint on there. And that's why I didn't clean off my brayer, because I knew I'd be sticking it back in the black paint again. All right, so let's take this print, and this time I'm going to put it down at the bottom of the page. I'm really feeling the urge to have these things hanging off the page for some reason today, so I'm going to go with that. As I take this print, you know there's going to be extra paint left on the plate. In part because, well, I only printed half of it the first time, so there's definitely lots on there. So that's where my cleanup page, my other art journal page, that's sort of where I'm just kind of sticking all the leftover paints, building up that fun background, that's where all this stuff's going to go. One of the things that I can really appreciate about using a gel plate is that nothing goes to waste. Paint never goes to waste, whether it's on the brayer, because I clean that off on a scrap piece of paper and builds up something, whether there's another print or more paint left on the plate, I can create a random background this way. So paint is never wasted. Now, I wanted another color and another circle on my page, except that another one of the 8-inch circles was going to be a little too large for me, so I just grabbed a smaller one, and I'm going to do the exact same technique around here, and I'm just going to put some of that pattern on there with the bucatini. Remember that letting it bounce, or sort of like a little trampoline as it hits that sponge, squishy gel kind of thing on there, that gives me what I think are the prints that I prefer. And of course, yes, I'm not going to waste any of that pattern or color, and I'm going to put that on my cleanup page. And remember the black that I didn't clean off that brayer? Well, now I'm going to. I'm going to clean it off on the scrap page as well as the small round plate, And what I'm going to end up creating is the background to yet another art journal page. Nothing is getting wasted here. Absolutely everything is becoming a layer that will get used in some way in my art journaling. Now, everything was running along smoothly until this point. I was having a great time, and all of a sudden, I started thinking. I was absolutely paralyzed. Do I pick yellow or do I pick orange? Yellow or orange for the background? Yellow or orange? And this became the equivalent of figuring out a solution for world peace. And I finally just said, pick one. You have 3 seconds, pick one, and use that. So that's what I did. So yellow is the winner. And what I want to do is paint all of this white space yellow. Now, I would like it to very neatly and crisply go right along the edges of the circles of the patterns that I've printed. But I don't want to have to actually think too carefully about this, so I'm actually going to bring the gel plates back, and I'm going to use them as the mask because they fit perfectly over it, so I can just put those down there and then paint around them. Now, there is one trick to this, and that is you do need to line the plate up right over where you had just painted. Because the angle that I was at, I didn't quite get it exactly where it needed to be, and I didn't quite see it. But is this going to be the end of the world? Nah, it's just an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. So I'm going to keep moving that paint around, and as I'm doing that, just holding onto the plate. Now, why am I holding onto the plate? Out of habit. That thing is definitely not going to move. We all know that when you put those down, there's this wonderful little suction thing, and they'll stay right where they need to be, even if I wasn't holding it. So now when I lift up the plate, you can see that little bit of yellow paint at the top, and that's a little bit of area where if I just wipe my finger over it, a lot of it comes up and nobody will even know. But what I did realize from that one is maybe I should actually look very carefully when I'm lining it up for when I put the next one on. Well, and clearly you can tell I'm not a very careful or precise person, so by being able to use the gel plate to do that work for me so I can paint in my willy-nilly style all around and actually get careful, clean-looking, neat edges and lines around circles, well, you know I love shortcuts like that. And now is about to be the very, very hardest and most difficult part of this art journal page for me, and that's actually waiting for the paint to dry. Because I don't like waiting for things to dry, and I don't really like getting out heat guns, so that leaves me with a bit of a quandary. But I wanted to write some words around the circles, so if I'm not going to wait for something to dry, that means I really can't use something like a pen or I'm going to ruin the pen, which I've done way too many times. So I grabbed a scribble stick, which is also a tongue twister, and I'm using that to write around each of the circles. Now, even though this art journal page is just about finished, it doesn't mean the fun needs to end here. You can find more of what I'm up to over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com, and I also have a 3-part Getting Started Gel Printing series with downloadable printable guides for you to have right next to you as you're making your first gel press prints. And of course, hit that subscribe button, that way you'll know as soon as I have another video here on YouTube. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.